Dabassdude here, and as some of you may know, as I posted on my recent social media, this is the first episode of my new series, GearTox. I will be including timestamps wherever, whether it's graphic or if I put something up here, just so you can skip this rambling if you really don't care and just want to see what I'm uploading. But so, essentially, this is the first episode, and I think I need to explain the premise of GearTox. I was inspired by watching YouTube channels such as Agony and the Charlie's Guitar Show, because what they do is, so essentially, they constantly get like this influx of guitars, whether it's because they're a reseller or they get companies to send them stuff because they're awesome, so like, of course. And they just kind of document and discuss the guitars that they have in their collection, and I love that type of video. The premise of this series is every week I will be bringing in a piece of gear, whether it's from my own collection or that it belongs to a fellow musician in my local scene, and we will give an overview of the specs for that piece of gear, we will discuss the story behind it, and then we will give you a demo of it. Very simple concept. It's pretty much expect 3 parts of a video every week. GearTox will be an opportunity for me and my fellow musicians to share the story of our gear, because believe it or not, I personally believe that all gear has a story, whether you think so or not. So like, to put it even in different terms, this is kind of like a chance for me and my friends to gush about our guitars and like share everything we want to share. I guess you can say it's sort of like a detox because you're getting it out of your system. Get it? GearTox, detox. Anyways, I digress. You can expect a new episode every Friday from this point on. So if you can, please subscribe and hit the bell. Turn on the notifications so then you don't miss an upload. And now without further ado, let's roll that intro. Alright, so welcome to the first episode of GearTox, where I believe all gear has a story. On this week's episode of GearTox, we will be taking a look at my 2014 Gibson LPJ. Let's take a quick second to open this lovely case. And there it is. So my particular model happens to be in a cherry satin finish. And I have to say, I love the color red on this guitar. And as far as I'm aware, the Gibson LPJ was intended to be a more cost-effective way for someone to get their hands on a genuine Gibson guitar. This guitar is built with a mahogany body, with a maple top, and then with a maple 50s style neck. So, I mean, it's your standard chunky Gibson neck, so that's pretty dope. It's a rosewood fretboard with 22 apparently cryogenically tempered frets, so I don't know what that means, but that's pretty cool. It does have the standard Gibson trapezoid inlays, but what I do think is actually pretty sweet is on this 12th fret, you do get this custom 120th anniversary inlay, which I personally enjoy it, and of course it's to commemorate the 120th anniversary of Gibson, as in 2014, that's exactly what year it was. And personally, I just love it because it makes this guitar stick out a little more, and it's just cool. It makes you feel a little more special about owning it. This guitar features a pair of 1961 Zebra Coil Alnico 5 pickups with some good old vintage style tuners. I believe it's, yep, Gibson Deluxe. There's the serial number, I suppose, and there it says Made in USA 2014, so that's pretty sweet. And finally, it has a standard Gibson Tune-O-Matic bridge. And then one cool thing about this instrument, which I could be wrong, but I have not seen it featured on any other guitars. I mean, I'm sure it is, but I haven't seen them personally, is stock. This guitar is supposed to come with 4 of these, let's see, what do they call them? Supreme Grip speed knobs, which the differences that I've noticed is they're taller than like the standard speed knobs right here that I'm pretty sure are standard. And they also have these like notches you can barely see in this video. And so that's pretty cool, and it's actually really nice. As you can tell, this guitar has seen some stuff, and it does not have all 4 anymore, but that's okay because I really don't touch my tone knobs that much. Oh, and it's standard Gibson electronics, so it's volume, volume, tone, tone. Got your nice clicky selector switch. Let's see here. Moral of the story is this guitar is a budget-friendly way to get the Gibson experience. And frankly, I love the LPJ models because what it comes down to is if I were to ever own like one of those nice custom shop Gibsons, I would honestly feel bad if I nicked it or if I felt the desire to like swap out the pickups. Because if you're already sinking that much money into a custom shop guitar, it's like you almost feel obliged to keep it as is, as you got it. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point of getting the custom shop guitar? So personally, this is actually the perfect type of way for me to own a Gibson because I am comfortable playing this live and I am comfortable potentially swapping out the parts if I happen to find that I don't necessarily like them as much. Now the real treat, and the reason why I want to do these videos, the history behind the guitar. So to begin, this very exact guitar right here, I was actually introduced back in 2014. However, I did not actually pick this up until a week ago in 2019. And so, this actually used to belong to my buddy Dan. By the way, Dan, if you're watching this, I love you, you're awesome. And so, he picked this up back in 2014. Honestly, him and I have been friends for quite a long time, and I'll get to more of that in a little bit here. But so this was one of the first nice guitars I was actually introduced to. So at the time I was only playing like a Strat ripoff, and then I finally upgraded to like my Epiphone Les Paul Special, which for those of you who know what that guitar is, essentially a beginner guitar, if not a slight, like very slight step up. And which isn't bad, but it's like when my friend came over after finally picking this up, it was game changing. I was like, I can't touch that, that's too nice. That's like a whole nother world. And so like that's honestly how I looked at this. I always associated this guitar with like talent and good playing and all that stuff because that's what I knew this by. My friend that was really talented at guitar when I was still a beginner was playing this guitar. This was his like child. He would be very like protective of this in a way. And what's also cool is I was actually more or less introduced to metal on this guitar. My introduction to music, the first genre that I actually properly listened to by myself was pop punk. So like, pop punk. I love it. By the way, I did finally see Sum 41 live after listening to it for so many years, so that was cool. But so, it was pop punk, and then like, I ventured into hard rock, because, yeah. And so, around the same time that I started finding bands like Avenged Sevenfold, Dan also showed me like riffs from Metallica and Megadeth on this guitar. And it was mind-blowing because it's like, that I can pinpoint to that, plus listening to Avenged Sevenfold in 8th grade was like a pivotal moment to me. It like opened what I thought was possible, and it introduced me to metal, and here I am now. And the biggest bit of lore that I would love to share about this guitar is this instrument was one of the leading causes that my current band, Agony Reigns, actually formed. So we formed in 2014, and that was actually following Dan and my departure from a pop punk band that I played bass and he played drums in. Again, the purpose of this segment is to say the story as specific as you want, so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm trying to provide context as possible. And so anyway, so we departed that pop punk band, and at the time we were like, we want to write something a little heavier. And for us, that related to hard rock, so like, we were all big into 3 Days Grace at the time. So that's kind of what it became. And that was Powerhouse, which, for more deep lore, that was Agony Reigns' original name. And so this guitar and that band evolved over the course of, now I guess, 5 years. And so from about 2014 to 2016, it was like hard rock. Like, Asphyxiate was our fastest and most aggressive song. And So then we started exploring metal more, and we finally, you know, that's what became a metal band, a modern thrash band, whatever you want to call us. And so what was cool is this is actually the guitar that Dan would use live for our D standard and drop C songs when he played with us. Dan was with us from the start of the band because him and I were, you know, essentially the reason why the band started back in 2014, and he stayed with us until early 2018. Random dates, because why not? Make the Metal Archives people happy. So yeah, he stepped down from the band in 2018, and for the longest time, that was actually the last time I saw this instrument, was when we did our live session at the garage, and he used this for our D standard and drop C songs. And so, however you want to look at it, unfortunately or whatever, he did start selling his gear, and he has sold a good chunk of it at this point. But that is exactly how I came into possession with this thing. I did not want to let this go because this was the guitar that wrote like a good chunk of my band's EP. This was the guitar that started the band. This was the guitar that like holds so much sentimental value to me. There was no way I was gonna let this go far because that'd be kind of tragic. Like, I don't know. So yeah, that is like the super deep lore when it comes to this guitar. And that is exactly why I love this guitar, and I will play it with pride and will happily make sure it still gets used. So that's why I will be using it with Klazomaniac when we play. Actually, by the time I'm uploading this, we're playing tonight, so that's cool. And so that's why I want to play this, because it's like this guitar started so much, and I want to honor it by making sure it still gets used. Now for some more like lighter fun stuff. Again, as I said, I did have an Epiphone Les Paul Special too, but finally owning this guitar fulfilled my desire for a Les Paul, and that desire was literally formed because of this very guitar. I literally now own like the pinnacle of a Les Paul to me. I know there are like way better models by technicality, but it's like this is what I thought of whenever I thought of a Les Paul. And then also my affinity for Les Pauls was formed from Trivium because Matt Heafy, obviously he uses like his own custom Les Pauls for his shows. And one of my favorite, he is literally my all-time favorite like songwriter and guitarist. And then also after seeing Coheed and Cambria on the Unheavenly Sky tour this last year, hearing the tones that Claudio gets out of his Les Pauls and SGs and everything, it made me go, I want that guitar. And then, sure enough, here I am with my very own now. Just to also highlight some other little fun tidbits, because I've known this guitar for so long, there are so many little scratches and dings that I am so familiar with. And so, like, for starters, where it's lighter on the finish right here, this is actually where, because of Dan's downpicking technique, it gradually wore through the matte finish. And so the lighter part is literally the exposed wood, and everything else is the finish gradually wearing down. I love that feature of it. As I said, only two of these knobs are the like super, like whatever they're called, the super grip knobs or whatever. These two are probably from Dan's Les Paul Jr. because they kept falling off all the time. So when I saw that, I was like, yep, that's right. The poker chip's gone because at one band practice, Dan was like, hey, yo, do you guys like how this guitar looks with or without the poker chip? And I'm like, without. And a couple days later, gone. If I remember that story correct. And then there's all of these like scratches on the back. I'm going to try to capture with the camera. This is like buckle rash right here a little bit, but then this is where he actually dragged a pick to like show me the difference between a matte finish and a gloss finish. It was kind of funny. And then he did actually carve in the word beast right here with a pick as well. It's very light, but that's also like part of the main reason I am very comfortable using this guitar live. Because if I was myself and I bought this thing new, I would be so paranoid to bring this live because it's like, what if I mess it up? And in the end, I finally adopted the mentality of instruments are tools that are meant to be played. Yes, it's great when they look nice, but also I have learned they look beautiful when they are naturally worn down and relic, which this is getting to that point. And I hope in another like 5 years or so, it looks even more beautifully messed up. Because like, that's the point of it. This guitar your instruments should be like an extension of yourself. So it's like, yeah. And what I love about matte guitars, I saw this band Seeker at the garage a couple years ago now. Wow. And their bassist used this matte black instrument, and you could tell how the guy picked, because all like right here, the finish was gone, decimated, nothing left. And that is why I'm actually happy that this guitar does that, because it's like, I hope that over the course of the next couple years, I will be able to make this guitar recognizably my own. So yeah, that concludes the history segment of this video. So up next, we will be getting into some tones.
So, this concludes this week's episode of Gear Talks, where I believe all gear is a story. So I'll ask you, what's yours? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Until next week, I'm Matt, and have a great day.